Okay, see, I don't want to check it out. I don't personally know anybody. Neither can we start.
We are ready to go.
Got it? Neither can we start. Neither can we start. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for our event, which is Air Water Generation for All, and it's being organized by Aero Nero with our partners Gawagi and Health Innovation Exchange. And before I get started, I would also like to thank the organizers of this pavilion, the Digital Innovation Pavilion. And you can see we are really surrounded by all this beautiful flora and fauna. And thank you, Miro, and your other colleagues. And I would also like to thank Nadam Foundation because some of us are here because of them. And before we get started, first of all, thank you for your time and for coming here. I know we've all had challenges flying into Bel Air, and air water generation is something which people go like, what is AWG? I think so. My name is Dr. Kadmini Murthy. I'm known as Mini. I'm from New York, and I wear many hats. And one of them, I am consulting with Aero Nero because they're working on air water generation. There's such a shortage of air, of water. So this technology has been pioneered. It's one of the few companies, startups in the world, and it's really galloping because how can we look using deep technology? And the reason I can say why this interests me is not only because it's commercial, but it's social good. Because water for all, we need water everywhere. So thank you, Aero Nero, for sponsoring this and having this pavilion here in this pavilion, and also Gawagi, which is the Global Air and Water Generation Initiative, and Health Innovation Exchange. So our very first speaker is Dr. Spencer Thomas. Thank you, Your Excellency, for coming here. And Dr. Spencer Thomas currently serves as Grenada's ambassador and special envoy for multilateral environmental agreements. Dr. Spencer Thomas is a leading authority on how to address climate. And one of the things is he is the lead negotiator for climate change and biodiversity. As we all know, there's so many issues with biodiversity. I mean, we are in one of the most biodiverse places in the world. And Dr. Thomas was a former permanent secretary and economic policy advisor to the Ministry of Finance, Grenada. And he's got 25 years of experience in international diplomacy in the areas of climate change, biodiversity, and sustainable development. Now, this is very interesting. Dr. Thomas holds a doctorate in energy economics, master's and bachelor's degrees in economics, a postdoctoral master's degree in telecommunications regulation and policy. He's an expert in energy economics with a focus on power sector efficiency and the use of renewable energy technologies. And he always stated, I love this quote from you, Your Excellency. You've stated that development can be decoupled from environmental degradation, and it can be achieved through both bottom-up and top-down approaches, taking into account the socio-economic reality of the Caribbean. But I think, sir, what you have done is applicable to everybody. And he has been involved in numerous innovative partnerships and also in the Coral Rehabilitation Park mangrove restoration, the Blue Innovation Institute, and the Caribbean Charity Initiative. Sir, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And, thank you for joining us here. So the floor is yours. And he will be keynoting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy, for this very generous intervention. And I see that we have done some research thank you very much for this. And also thank you for the invitation to be here and to speak on this very important panel and a very important subject of water.
Can you speak up a little?
Yeah, okay. I think I would like to just make one point here for the entire presentation. And the point is about capacity. Capacity, yes. Absorptive capacity. And especially in the context of small island developing states. So my talk here will center on the Grenada and what happened in the Grenada situation in the project in the water sector. In this debate in the UNFCCC, we always hear about the special circumstances of small island developing states, LDCs. And these days we are hearing about the special circumstances of Africa, the special circumstances of mountains, the special circumstances of various um, ecosystems across the world. But I think when we speak about the special circumstances of small island water states like Leah, we're basically speaking about absorptive capacity. Now, we need to examine this issue of capacity and absorptive capacity because you can have all the money in the world for projects and you will not be able to use it if you don't have that capacity. So, in the Grenada context, we decided that we will need to send a project to the GCF, when the GCF came up. And we decided well, which area, which sector we should be focusing on. We have many sectors: agriculture was key, tourism, water, energy, health, education. So we had a sort of stakeholder engagement to zero in on where it is because we know for a fact that we cannot send two or three projects for $50 million US to the GCF. We need to study. So we're looking at which is the area. Um, I went, I suppose, to the issue of energy, of course, as you indicated. I felt that there were a lot of economic arguments in favor that the sector should be energy. We went systematically down and then we ended up with two sectors, energy and water. A lot of good arguments on both sides. But I believe what won the day, and I lost eventually because we ended up with water. What won the day was the social connection with the water. The economics was right, but the social conflict. So that's why we felt that the water was the most important project to take care of on this project. Of course, the interplay between water and energy cannot be denied. So that also has to be looked at. And of course, in the context of small island developing states, there is no difference between what we do in mitigation for climate or adaptation for climate. They are all how we see it in the same field. So we went for water. So what it is that we wanted to do in the water sector? Resilience. We wanted to build resilience in the water sector. So the key objectives then was how do we manage the water resources that we have? One. And the second issue is how do we have enhanced efficiency in the operations and effective operations in the water sector? How do we do those two things? That was the question. And what was the goals that we were trying to look at? Where do we want to do that? We felt we should look at issue of governance and institutions. We will look at policy side, the implement and the improvement of the policy side, and also the infrastructure. So those are the three major areas of intervention. So, what was the context? Why do we arrive at that? We arrived at that because one, everything in the country with water was manual. It was a manual system. The metering system was manual, everything was done by hand, manually. That was issue. Then we had issues with the customer base and the information. There was no systematic way. There were a lot of errors. We don't know where people are. You know, those kind of issues. It was ad hoc. That was the second issue. The third issue was that the infrastructure was aged. The distribution infrastructure, the metering system, age meters and so on. That was also another issue. And of course, as a result of the age infrastructure, a lot of losses on the line. And the completed percentage was 27%, non-revenue water. 20%, 27% loss of water. So, what was the strategy to do with it? We said maybe two major strategies. One is digitalization. Bring in technology and let technology help to bring the process forward. That was the first one. And the second issue was new infrastructure and ensure that we have non-revenue water infrastructure in place, institutions in place to do those things. And infuse AI, whatever current technology that will be useful, infuse that technology into the water sector. So that was basically what we plan to do in terms of our structure. Now, the new reality after doing this is that we got to a point where we have dedicated non-water revenue infrastructure, dedicated and institutional set up specifically doing that. We have district meter system, district area management area system established. We did have IT support for asset management. So all the management of the sector, the assets were done in IT support. Geographic information system was established and we had standard operating procedures updated. All of this happened. And actually, the key was the modernization of the infrastructure. So all of this happened as a consequence of that project. But of course, we cannot forget the issue of capacity building. And that was infused in that project. Institutional strength and capacity building. All of these were involved in that project. So, what was the impact? What was the impact of all of this? One, we felt that sustainable resource management was enhanced. So we were able to do water resource management was enhanced. There was significant savings in the water sector for agriculture and for tourism in particular because it was the bedrock of the economy. There was enhanced water storage facilities as a consequence of infrastructure. And of course, we reduced water losses. Non-revenue water basically became an issue of the past. And cost reduction. Cost to the consumer were also part of the equation. As we improve the efficiency, as we improve digitalization, we found that the cost because we had a low already to begin with and subsidized to a large extent, but the cost to the country as a whole went down. And there was opportunities for greening the sector. Greening the sector, the water sector was also part of the objective. And finally, we thought that the regional collaboration and cooperation was also quite useful. So that lessons learned, what we found out, New Zealand and many other countries actually went to the GCS for a water sector project, to them and the same kind of conditions on which the water sector was also done. So, what we think about the future, what we see happening in the future is an expansion of what is happening right now. An integration, a full integration of IT management systems into the sector, a full integration of international standards into the sector. So that will be basically what we're looking forward to, ensuring that the water sector becomes more efficient by infusing in that digitalization, AI, whatever it is, bringing in those technologies, and so that we can check and make sure that we have a more vibrant water sector. So let me just recap. One is the absorptive capacity, that is very critical. Two, there is an imperative to ensure that we have a very resilient water sector. Three, digitalization is part of the reform. And four, it's a high return on investment once you take that forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I've heard so many, I'm putting my health hat on, being a physician and a public health expert. I've heard so many people talk about the importance of water, but you analyzed it so well, sir, because you even talked about not only the social impact, but the economic impact. So this is really an eye-opening, and we have so many youth here, and we have people online. So I think you touched on a very important issue, especially from your region. You have water, but unfortunately, the water may not be accessible always. It's the same case. Even we are here in the Amazon. We have one of the biggest rivers flowing through this country, the Amazon River, but there are water issues. So thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. And now I would like to, please, can you stay with us to the end of the? Thank you, sir. So thank you so much because we don't have a big stage. Thank you, sir. That was so nice. Please join me in giving His Excellency a big round of applause. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate your time. Now, the next speaker I would like to invite Mr. Obed Korino from CARE. Thank you so much, Obed, for joining us. Um, and I'm just going to pull up your bio. See, that's why we all multitask. We work from our phones, we work from, yeah. So, Ovid Koringo is a climate policy advisor at CARE Denmark. And I want to share something. When I was spelling Denmark with DEN, I was corrected, and you say DANMARK. So in Danish, I guess that's how it's written. So he leads the Southern-led policy advocacy, and Obey provides technical support to country programs on evidence-based climate adaptation and resilience. For those of you who don't know about CARE, Google it. They're not paying me to talk about it, but they've done excellent work for, more than 2 decades. So Obey brings over 14 years of experience in climate policy analysis, advocacy, and lobbying at national, regional, and global levels across multiple platforms. Within CARE's global climate policy team, he plays a key role in influencing international policy debates on climate adaptation and finance. Okay, people really want to listen to you. They have a band in the background welcoming you. I'm giving applause to His Excellency. So, before joining CARE, Obed worked with many organizations like the Pan American African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA, and has long collaborated with Southern CSO networks and institutions and grassroots community. So thank you so much, Obed, for your time. We really appreciate it. The floor is yours. So I will start on asking you my first question. So, Obed, could you please tell us how do you see the role of organizations like CARE in scaling water, especially in places where traditional infrastructure or commercial models don't reach? And the reason I hand you up to His Excellency because your talk is a natural segue before I turn to Dr. Leah Dundon, who's the only lady panelist apart from me on this. So thank you. Obed, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for the excellent introduction. I think I'm surprised that actually can be really have a very, very rich bio. So thank you so much for that introduction. So just going to your question, yes, at CARE, like any other organizations like CARE, when we look at the water, we look at the water really being a very critical component, especially when we talk about agriculture, when we talk about food security, nutrition, when we talk about keeping girls in school, women and girls in school, when we talk about preventing disease outbreaks, and really for us, we look at it from a justice perspective. So then, of course, when we talk about water, it's a bit tempting to start looking at it from big infrastructures, big technologies. But for us who we work with the local communities, we look at it from the justice perspective. And those who are most affected right now by climate change are the least contributors to climate change. And when you talk about those who are hit hardest by water stresses, they're those who have contributed the least, including women, girls, and marginalized communities in the rural and fragile settings. So then, for instance, when water is scarce, when women have to walk for long distances to fetch water, farmers have to really endure low yields from their crops, and of course, which also leads to low income. Then it's about lost opportunities, it's about lost health, and lost yields in the farmers. So that's why we, first of all, insist that we have to start from the local realities, the realities of those who are most affected, and the technologies that we come up with have to actually be in line with the local realities, and they have to be part and parcel of developing solutions that actually address their challenges. So then we, of course, are tempted sometimes to use a top-down approach where we come up with technologies and solutions that we think work for them. But at CARE, we believe it is good to work with them, develop solutions that actually address their unique challenges. And really, that is the justice that lens that we apply at CARE here. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I mean, that you really highlighted it. That's why I said your talk is a natural segue to His Excellencies. So before I move on to the second question, don't think you're off the hook already. I have some more questions for you because of the work you personally have been doing and your organization has been doing. So one of the things I just want to say is like using deep technology and also all this digital innovation, this discussion, I mean, in COP, is like bringing all this together. I call it a four-dimensional puzzle because we're taking it from the ground up. And as both of you said, it's not only a top-down, but it's bottom-up. But I would also say it's a lateral, effort too. So putting my health hat on again, you can do anything, but you can't take your health hat off. And it helped me yesterday, which I told some of you what happened. So, okay, you have said that water scarcity is just not a technical issue, but it's also a justice issue. That's why, there's companies like Aero Nero and other companies looking at how can we generate water from air so that everybody has access to water. So can you explain, based on all the work you've been doing, because if we weren't believing in social justice, we wouldn't be sitting in this room, including His Excellency in his long and illustrious career and all the other panelists. And it's so nice to see our youth too. And a shout out to Sean too, who's taking pictures. Thank you, Sean. Can you explain how we look at combining justice with technical issue, and how should we think about deep technology or digital transformation? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think linking justice and technology is a very important issue, and I would like to look at it from combining and linking local realities, indigenous information, and local information with scientific information. For instance, how do we, because communities already know solutions, they have the solutions, they have sometimes sort of we tend to think that they don't have solutions for the challenge that they're facing, but they do have solutions, and that's why we insist on working and developing these technologies with them to be able to be fit for purpose. So then, how do we combine local realities, local technologies, and indigenous technology that is available at the community level to be able to actually feed into the technology that we're developing so that it can be fit for purpose? I think that's my main takeaway. And of course, also, how do we also cushion the communities and also have put in place safeguards to be able to ensure that we do not have technology that may actually be may be harmful to them. So talk about maladaptation, providing solutions that actually may actually even bring more harm than actually bring the solution that we are trying to bring forth. So I think that's what I would like to react to that question, and of course I'm happy to provide more input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Obed. This leads to my third question, and thank you for giving the link between how technology and justice, because you made your case for how there should be also equity and equality. And those of us working in this space know the difference. So I thank you so much. So CARE has worked in so many fragile and climate vulnerable areas. So could you just give an example of something from Africa or anywhere in Asia where you have really addressed how to provide water when in an area which is hard to reach? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. There are many examples for that care. Water is a big sort of aspect of the work that we do. But one of the very sort of simple example that I can actually provide is in Niger, where of course care has supported what we call mobile desert gardens. So these are low-tech, water-efficient vegetable gardens that actually are grown in containers and they are water efficient and can be moved with a pastoralist sort of community. So, as you know, Niger is one of the hardest hit countries, especially by climate change, and there have been recurrent droughts. And we've seen erratic rainfall, and communities keep moving from one point to another in search of pasture for their animals, in search of water, and of course, food. And we find that water is very, very scarce as a result of recurrent and frequent droughts. So we thought work with communities and actually sort of engage with them to come up with a solution that actually works best for them based on the circumstances that actually they face. So this gardens really they use locally available materials, for instance, clay or wooden trays, and they use drain water. As you know, of course, there is no clean water sometimes. So then they said, how can they use this to be able to grow crops and even be able to feed their families and even sell the surplus to be able to sort of get some more income within their families. So this thing is one of the simplest examples of local innovations that communities have actually been able to develop that I can actually give from the tip of my head in Niger. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's a great example. So it's like portable vegetables. It is so nice. So it's easy to reach people. And my last 1 minute question to you is you're working with CARE, and can you briefly share with us how the Danish government is supporting the efforts to ensure that water and climate adaptation solutions reach the most vulnerable people?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. That's a very good question. The Danish government has been very, very supportive, especially in the countries where we're working in Africa especially. And they provided that really leadership role is, on climate adaptation, issues of gender equality, and of course, for example, the Danish development strategy has an explicit um, focus on locally led adaptation, issues of resilience, and water access, including Africa and, of course, fragile states. And Denmark has been very, very supportive with the climate adaptation work, and of course, especially where it intersects with gender and local empowerment, including supporting locally led innovative solutions for water.
and of course, finally, in Mozambique, Niger, and Bangladesh, we've seen that Danish funding has been able to help us scale community-based water and climate solutions that empower women and, of course, strengthen governance. So really, this is something that is very, very important. And even as in this copy, we see that the Danish government is very, very strong in supporting adaptation and especially financing adaptation, NAPS. And as you know, water is a very, very critical sector that is enshrined in the NAPS and NDCs. And the Danish government is very, very keen to say that we have financing that is able to support adaptation implementation and provide real results on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Obey. That was so good. And you covered a lot of ground. And thank you. Yours was a very natural, follow-up to a very powerful keynote opening by His Excellency. So may I please request you to take a seat and we'll open it up for Q&A. Yeah, thank you for giving me. And now it's my great pleasure to invite Dr. Leah Dundon to join us. Thank you so much. And she is the director of the Vanderbilt Climate Change Initiative and a research assistant professor in environmental engineering at Vanderbilt School of Engineering. And so it's always great to talk to a fellow academic. And her work focuses on climate change, education, and maritime shipping decarbonization. That's really so interesting. And Leah runs an annual interdisciplinary course on climate change that aims to train students at the science where they policy interface and has been taking students to COP for 5 years. You can reach out to any of us to give a talk in your interdisciplinary course, right? I just signed up a lot of people here. So she's also completed her PhD through the Center for Environmental Management, studies at Vanderbilt University, and is a part of the research group that focuses on climate change risk management and assesses the impacts of extreme weather on infrastructure structure adaptation, just what His Excellency was talking to us about. She's an attorney, so you see we have such a diverse panel here. And she has served as the chair of the Committee on Innovations, Management Systems and Trading, and a committee of the American Bar Association of Environment, Energy and Resources. And she's published and lectures. That's the one thing about academia, before I start asking you questions, we have a saying, publish or perish. That's what we do in academia. We're publishing or perishing. Thank you so much, Leah. So, being an educator, and I want to look at your perspective about what do you see the role of education in driving climate solutions? And do you find young people are excited about getting involved in climate solutions because you brought delegations for the past 5 COPs? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the Dundon Foundation also. They've been really helpful to supporting our students as well. And one of my former students is here, also supported by the Dundon. So thank you again to the Dundon Foundation. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I think things have changed from when I first started teaching about this course. I started it in 2019. And I would say that I have seen a bit of a trend in more optimism towards climate solutions. There is still, I think, an endemic situation of young people being concerned, they're very pessimistic and concerned and have it's even been termed eco-anxiety. But I think there's also a lot of solutions out there, and there's many different sectors now working on exciting new things that really can drive solutions. You heard about some of these examples today already on this panel. And the students are taking note. So it is not all doom and gloom. There is, concerted effort. And I think coming to the COPs is a really important experience for the students. They see, and this is true, even if the negotiations do not produce an actual outcome that perhaps is, what we would really want to see, because they're seeing all of us and hundreds of thousands and thousands of people at all stages of their careers working extremely hard on every sector there is. I mean, this is the most interdisciplinary place you can be. There's law, there's economics, there's business, there's NGOs, climate justice, everything. So I think attending these talks, people leave, the young people leave with more optimism and starting to think about their own role in where do I fit in this solution supply chain, essentially. Actually saw a great giant poster on one of the pavilions that had a little progression of like it's too late, it's too difficult, it's too much climate change, it's too late to address, too difficult to address, it's too costly. And then the last panel was, what if this is the greatest opportunity that humanity, has faced? And I've heard, famous climate economists talking about the same thing, that's how we have to look at it. So I think part of how I see academics' role is to get students excited. And there is a deficit in academia around climate change education. I mean, one of my colleagues at Vanderbilt University did a study that was published in the journal. You can find it several years ago, that took the top 100 schools in the United States by ranking and examined all of their required core curricula. Only one of those schools required some climate education. That means the top schools in the U.S. are not graduating students that have to take something about climate change, which means we're all just self-selecting. And we need to reach a much broader segment of the population, young people. It should be, you don't get out of high school without having to diagram a cell and know what the parts of the cell are. Well, we need to have people not getting out of high school or college without knowing something about the climate system and how it will impact all sectors. So I really try to have my students understand whatever field they're going into, and I purposely engage students from the humanities, from engineering, from law, from medicine, so that they will learn how their particular field is going to be impacted and how they can also contribute to solutions.
Thank you so much, Leah. One of the things when you talked about it, it reminds me of SWOT. I'm sure you tell your students strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, which are interchangeable. And just to add on to what you said, having worked with medical students and public health students for almost 25 years, it's so sad when you talk to them. They are not aware of the effects of climate on pregnant women and children. For example, in this region, that's why we are here, they have such a high rate of so many challenges because of climate. So at one end you have obesity, at one end you have malnutrition. So it's a very interesting paradigm. So I really appreciate you saying that. And I think on us it's a responsibility as academics, policy makers, and diplomats to make sure that everybody in schools, in universities, there is at least a short 1 credit course about climate and why it's affecting us and how we don't leave anyone behind. The other thing I just wanted to say is that my second question, what types of educational initiatives do you think work and are innovative, and how can we increase participation across backgrounds in climate solutions? For example, how can our students work with the private sector like Aero Nero or Gawandi to see how can we come together? Because not only are we talking about giving them technology, but also getting them to think of what the younger generation. As the mother of a younger daughter, and we have our youth here. So I think this is a great nexus on how can we promote these so it's a win-win situation. So over to you now.
Thank you. I think the notion of the sort of experiential education is not new. It's been around obviously forever. But I think it's the key really to getting students engaged with their community partners. So whether it's government or NGOs or businesses. And that was how I developed this course, was around this experience of coming to COP. This year, these are just some examples, but this year and last year, we're partnering with Oak Ridge National Lab, which is one of our U.S. Department of Energy national labs, which was established in the United States to address these huge problems that are not going to be solved by one university's department of whatever. And so they have a lot of resources, and our students are now actually working with the Climate Change Science Institute, which actually still exists, after DOU National, and working on projects to look at, in particular, they're working on a project to look at the carbon sequestration potential in the southeast forest of the United States. And that's kind of a really interesting science policy social question because the southeast of the United States tends to be more disbelieving and just not accepting of science, of climate science, and tends to vote for leaders that often do not that reject the science. And so this project is not only looking at soil carbon chemistry under different climate solutions, but they're looking at how can local landholders, how can small family farmers of different backgrounds, including Black African Americans, have a very small percentage of the family farms in the Southeast. And so bringing them into the economic advantages that they could get by having managing their forests in a way that brings them money and economic. I think people don't see the economic advantages to them for climate change. It's all the message in some areas of the U.S. is that it's just going to cost you more taxes and you're not going to get anything out of it, so why do it? So I think that project is sort of one example of partnering with a government institution that is really focused on a local community project as well. And then a couple other examples. One of my colleagues, Dr. Pam Templer here, runs at Boston University in Boston, one of the National Science Foundation Research Trainee Fellowships. And they are also expressly designed to get students in their master's or PhD programs into the communities, working directly with NGOs, government, businesses, to have their skills, bringing their skills to the organization, and then also learning from that organization what their needs are in that particular community, what that organization focuses on, and it's sort of a win-win for both student and organization. And then the students are also learning about what their career options are, whether it's they might actually get a job in my organization, or they learn like, wow, there's 100 groups that work in this field, and now I have all these options. So I think those are sort of two examples that I would highlight for engagement. But I think experiential education is a really important part of a college degree. And I'll just add one other thing. Traveling around to these COPs, and just I enjoy travel, you see some of these ancient universities that are surrounded by a wall. Oxford's the perfect example. There's a literal wall. Even in the U.S., many of them have gates. The older they are, the more brick walls they have. And so they were really designed to keep students in and the community out. Like there was a separation that was visible by this wall. Thomas Jefferson talked about the academical community, and there's benefit to that. When you bring people together and you're in a community space and you're all working towards one thing, that's great. But we are really in a different world now, and I think we need more doors in those walls to have more flow of the community in and flows of students out while they're getting an education.
Thank you so much, Leah. I think that's why, like a lot of us in academia and even the diplomats and people in NGOs always want students. And those of you who are here watching online, and I also wanted to just give a shout out to Miro, who's been such a big, and Miro, Swav, and Ravi, these people, and Hava, they really have so many young students, even my own daughter, and she always goes like, Mom, if it wasn't for people like Miro, Hava, and Ravi, I wouldn't have had this engagement with the UN. So I think, and also diplomats like yourself, sir, sitting here, because what you're doing is you're handing the torch to the future, torch bearers to say, just being a diplomat is not on policy, because you are telling them you have your hands dirty. That's why you can tell them. You tell your students, get your hands dirty. That means be practical. So thank you so much, Leah. And, we'll have a Q&A. And also, Obed, I want to thank you as an NGO leader for working with our youth. So our fourth speaker is joining us online. Thank you so much. Please join me in giving Dr. Dundon a big round of applause. Thank you so much. So this is very, unfortunately, our fourth speaker could not be with us in person because his flights got delayed. But he is joining us online. Hi, Olumide. Can you? Oh, there you are. Hi. So Olumide is a Nigerian climate change activist. He was on a panel where we did in COP 2020. I think he hasn't lost it. We only see his hand. Maybe as a he got stuck in Brazil. So he's a Nigerian climate change activist, widely recognized for his commitment to advancing environmental awareness and promoting a balanced approach to sustainability. Olumide, can you hear us? Just a moment. I'm just going to find out that he's there. Okay, he's there. Okay, great. Okay, so he is become a leading voice in climate advocacy, engaging both young and older generations through grassroots initiatives, leadership, and digital platforms. And that's why he's called Mr. Climate. So that's Olumide's, reference. And Olumide, I really thank you for your time in joining us. And also, before I hand it over to him, he's the co-founder of the International Climate Change Development Initiative, ICCDI Africa, and he's dedicated to building climate-smart generations across the continent while addressing developmental gaps that hinder resilience and equity. His leadership extends to global and regional platforms, and he's serving as a youth focal point for the UNDP Small Grants Program in Nigeria. And he's also a youth leader, author of Global Environmental Outlook, the GEO report. So thank you so much, Olumide, for joining us. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Thank you for having me. I can hear you clearly. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Who wants to join?
I should. Hi, Olumide, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes.
You can hear.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask you my first question. You've done so much of work, so let's get. Yeah, thank you for saying you can hear me. So, Olumide, my question is: you've done so much of work. Now, can you please share with us what are the challenges with water access in Africa, especially Nigeria? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very honored. Let me just share a little bit that access to clean water remains one of the pressing development very, very problem that we're seeing. How is affecting health, how is affecting education, how is even affecting economic growth. One of the biggest challenges. So
Sorry,
for us to
Olumide, can you speak up? We can't hear you. We're trying to work on the technical issues. One moment, please. Can you please say hello or something?
hello, hello,
You hear me there?
can you hear me?
Can you say hello again? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? you want to call me on my WhatsApp and I can put it? Can you call me
Can you
on
hear me?
WhatsApp? Yes, a little. No, we can't. Can you call me on WhatsApp?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay.
Hello, can you
Can
hear me? I think it's from your end, not my end.
Hi, we can't hear you.
I'm sure
I-
I'm,
I'm gonna put,
I'm sure it's from your
okay,
end
I'm gonna
because
put you on speaker phone, and then can you give your answer and I'll put the
okay. Yes,
Can
I
you
can.
hear me? Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna try. Yeah, if you can you put your give me a minute. Can you put the speaker phone, and I'm gonna try to put the mic here so that we can hear you. Okay.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Okay. Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, access to clean water and safe water remains one of the Africa's most present development challenges, and is affecting health, is affecting education,
sorry.
is affecting. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay. You know what? Olumide, sorry. I'm just gonna read out what you sent me. Please stay online. So sorry. Hi, hi everyone. So sorry because I had him send me this. So I am going to read what he said. And it's so sad. That is the sad part of technology. I'm just going to read it in the interest of time.
You should try again.
Olumide, try again, please.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, yes, please go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you very much. If you can hear me, that is good. So what I'm saying is access to clean water and safe water remains one of the African most present development challenges, and it happens across all geopolitical zones. How is affecting Earth, how is affecting education, and even economic growth. And we also see that across the continent, over close to 400 million people, a lack of, a basic drinking water. And this is a very big challenge because of with many communities relying on safe, or let's say a distant sources of how to access the water. So an example of in Nigeria, the problem is particularly acute despite being blessed with a lot of abundant sources, of groundwater resources, and it's only about 10% of households have been able to have access to safe managed drinking, shortage due to the damaged infrastructure. So when you look at the climate change conversation, drought, conflict, even in the Niger Delta, that we have industrial pollution and oil spillage have actually taken over all the contaminated rivers and even the groundwater that we find ourselves. So it is very important for us when we are addressing this issue of challenges in Africa and even in Nigeria particularly, we must adopt our multidimensional and even technology-driven approach. Governments should, prioritize investment in climate resilience. Water infrastructure, community-based water management system must be in place, and we need to start looking at policies that can protect water resources from pollution and even overuse. So these are the things I think is very important when you look at innovative solution that cut across air water generation technology. So we need to start thinking of how do we embed water access, goes within the natural the national climate adaptation in the country, and even a subnational development strategy, which will help us to ensure that we have a long-term resilience that is turning Africa water challenges into opportunities for growth, for opportunities for economic development, for health improvement, and even dignity across value chain. Thank you very much. Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your advocacy and your thinking about the issue of water, deep tech, digital transformation. So my question to you is: you're a youth. People look up to you. So, what is your message for the youth in talk? Because as you know, we are being broadcast. Why do you say they need to believe in action now? And what is your message for them to do what they have to do to address all these? Because it's just not in Nigeria, not in Africa, but it's all over the world. So, can you tell the youth who are following you how they work together? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the strongest message that we can send out there to other fellow young people is that it is time for us to collaborate. It is time for us to, build our expertise around these kind of issues. It is time for us to start driving community-driven initiative that will build a future for the people in the local communities and even in your bus settings. I also say that it is time for us to start looking at how do we create investment opportunities that we make sure that it's not leaving anyone behind. How do we work around SDG 6, clean water and sanitation? How do we make sure that we prioritize SDG 7, which is helping us around affordable and clean energy? How do we start talking about climate action in a local context? These are ways where technology aligns with priority and can make us to leave no one behind. So for young people, it is time for us to take action. It is time for us to invest. It is time for us to give time to this initiative that is going to drive a lot of community engagement. And if we can do this, Nigeria and Africa will be able to adopt a deep sense of technology that is going to drive good transformative, air into hope, and also to help us to see how technology can turn into dignity for both young, old, children, and every other stakeholders. Because if we do this, we'll be able to achieve more and we'll be able to drive technology that is locally driven, locally made, and be supporting the communities across the value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Olumide, thank you so much for your remarks. And we really appreciate having you and hope you have a safe flight and land in Bellum so we can thank you in person. Thank you so much. Our last speaker, but no way the least, thank you for being so patient, Hari. I would like to invite you to the podium. So Dr. Srihari Govind is a physician from Tamil Nadu. I was born in India, but that's not, yeah, in Tamil Nadu, but that's not why I have you on the panel. Well, I have you on the panel because of the work you've been doing. So for the Asia Pacific Regional Network for Early Childhood, ARNEC, ARNEC. So I just want to say this was so nice because we had His Excellency from the Caribbean. We had two speakers from Nigeria. We had somebody, Nigeria and Kenya from the African region, and we have two of us from the US, which he's an Erasmus Mundus Scholar working in the intersection of climate, health, migration, and early childhood development. He's also the co-chair to the UNNM. Hurry, expand what UNM is.
Thank you. It's the UN Network on Migration.
So working on the future health emergencies and his health advisory positions to the International Data Alliance for Children. And he has a health education fellowship from GCCHE at Columbia University and is a visiting scholar at the Prabowo Mar Ajisa Institute in Thailand. I hope I got the name right. Harry, I want to ask you something. As a young physician, your background is on health, treating patients. So what made you lead to addressing climate and especially working on the shortage of water for children? Because, SDG 3 is one of the most important SDGs, and you cannot achieve SDG 3 without other SDGs. So thank you for
No, thank you, Dr. Fatmani, and thank you to all my other colleagues. And thank you for the kind introduction as well. I think sitting in this heat, we also realize how important water is. And clean water is not only a matter of survival, but it is the foundation for development. And particularly in my work, I work with the first 1,000 days of life, building climate resilience for the first 1,000 days of life, that's 0 to 3 years. So it is the foundation of early development. But today, not only in this room in the land, but that foundation is cracking and we need clean water. Now, climate change does not distribute its effects equally. When drought dries up wells, when floods contaminate rivers, when infrastructure collapses, it is not the privilege to go thirsty, but it is the child who walks 6 to 7 kilometers every day before school with 2 buckets of water over his shoulder. He's the person who goes thirsty. But it's the child from Indonesia, from India, from Africa, from South America who goes thirsty. And the lack of clean water compounds every other vulnerability. It fuels malnutrition, it disrupts education, it furthers and drives displacement. And climate change is rewriting our water cycles. Now, prolonged droughts concentrate pathogens and the chemicals that stagnate in water. Floods wash fecal matter, pesticides, and heavy materials into wells and reservoirs. Now, rising sea levels also make coastal aquifers salty, and warmer temperatures accelerate the growth of bacteria. The result is not just scarcity, it's contamination, it's pollution. And the smallest bodies pay the biggest price. So like I said, coming to my work, I know people use the word most vulnerable, but I think I work with the most vulnerable and the least responsible. That is children in the first 1,000 days of life. So 0 to 3 years. So now in this 1,000 days of life, a child's brain forms millions of neural connections every second. Now this forms the art. This early years determines the art of health, learning, well-being, development, forming an individual identity. And its connection, a person's growth, connection to the environment, to the people, to the social, to the community. But dehydration and waterborne diseases and poor sanitation irreversibly disrupt these processes. Now, infants and young children drink more water per kilogram in body weight than adults. So when that water is contaminated, their exposure is much higher. The immune systems are developing, the kidneys cannot filter out the toxins as effectively as adults. And a dose of bacteria that causes mild symptoms in adults can be deadly for children under 5. Now, dehydration from viral illness is set within hours. A loss of just 10% of the water in the body is life-threatening. Now, every year there's like 1.7 billion cases of dehydration, and most of that is due to unclean water. You know? So the threat is rising, but the danger does not just end with infection, it's also going into chronic effects. Now, we often talk about adaptation, about flood barriers, about solar panels and resilient crops, but we cannot talk about adaptation without talking about water, and we cannot talk about children's rights without talking about climate resilience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hari. So for summing that up, and before I ask you my next question, is one of the issues is because children are the most disenfranchised in the world because they don't have a voice, they don't vote. So the reason not to bring up is, we have our diplomatic experts sitting here, but unfortunately, the way policies on climate change, water accessibility are politically influenced, as is public health. So the last thing I want to say before I turn it over to you is you brought up something of infectious diseases. So many girls don't go to school, and there's so much of pediatric poverty also because there's no clean water. So it's just not, an economic issue. It's also a development issue, and it's also very much a socio-equitable issue. Thank you, Hari. Now, as we're wrapping up with you, and then we have our other, I'm going to give each of you 1 minute to say what is your take-home message. One of the most important things in your work as a young physician and now being an advocate, especially for children's health. The same thing I asked Olumide because you are the young generation or the Z generation, or what are you, the Q generation? I don't know, I can't keep up with the different names. So, what is your take home message for your fellow healthcare youth professionals? Why do they need to focus on the effects of climate change, the shortage of water, and this extreme temperatures? So, what is your take home message, and why do you think it's not too late? As Professor Dundon said, this is an opportunity. What is your message to them? Thank you.
Coming to the point of child participation, maybe I'll address that in a different setting. But my take-home message, so I always like to give an example. In South India, we have chronic kidney disease. It's an epidemic. And it's linked with dehydration, And this epidemic came very recently as well, the past 20, 30 years. So, when you think about it, did we as a people suddenly wake up and decide not to drink more water? Like, did we? No, it is because of higher peak. And that, yes, and I need my water after this. But, going that a bit extra mile is health literacy and agency must be there, And we as a people, the people did not wake up one day and decide to drink less water. We need to educate them and give them the agency to drink, or tell them that we need to drink more water. And in India must be trained, because I know our panelists said there was a study in the US. Actually, I've done a study with medical schools in India. We covered around 75% medical schools. And there has been no climate health education in like 70% of them. But 70% of the students from these medical schools want climate health education. And that last night for doctors to not understand the context of dehydration is very important, and we need to make them understand, and we need to ensure that they ensure that our patients don't go without.
Thank you, Hari, for bringing up a very important point, for talking about how water scarcity or lack of potable water or clean water leads not only to infectious diseases but chronic diseases. I was hoping you would. Thank you for bringing it up. So my last takeaway point is, it's not only health literacy, it's climate literacy we all need to be talking about. So I'll start with you. What is your 30 to 45 second, not minute, takeaway message today?
I thought that as we debate carbon budgets and adaptation pathways, we must remember that every drought has a microbial and chemical signature. It affects the children's guts, microbes, and also the genetics of the child, so that the child's grandchild would be affected as well. So the health of the children is the most precise indicator of the health of our planet, and today both are contaminated and we must act.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you so much. Please join me in giving a round of applause. Your Excellency, may I request you to give us a 1 minute takeaway?
Yeah, thank you very much. My 1 minute takeaway. Yesterday I went to a technology doing in water. It is about water, and what my take home here, it's about water, of course, but it's also about climate. It is also about biodiversity, because here you are, biodiversity, only the two dresses that we have right now. It's about everything. It's about SDGs. And when you mention to the students, I think we took that holistic approach, that whole development approach, because it's not only about water, it's not only about climate, it's about development, it's about people. So that is my takeaway, that we need to combine all of these and make progress along all the lines of the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Your Excellency, for summing it up so well. That's why we need diplomats because they weave the tapestry beautifully. So thank you. I'm next going to go to you, please, for your 1 minute. If you could come here because you're on camera, right? That's why. 1 minute takeaway today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been a very exciting conversation. One takeaway from me is the need to recognize the unique role that each of us play in this whole process of providing solutions, innovating solutions to addressing the water challenge. I'm happy that in this panel we had youth, we had academia, we had civil society. Of course, I was expecting to see more private sector policymakers there here. So really, each one of us has a very unique role to play, and we have to collaborate and really work together. Last but not least, innovation does not necessarily have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complex. It can simply mean coming up with simple solutions that will work to address unique challenges that communities face. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before I call on Dr. Dundon, Leah, I just want to say, private sector will hear us because when we all speak, we roar, you need to listen to us. Because if you don't work with us, you won't get the money. So that is the message. So thank you so much. I think you said that about a simple solution. That's why processes like digital transformation, air water generation, and it's unbelievable that we don't realize, most of us, that there's so much of water up in the air. So we need to bring it down so that we can drink it. And also we don't have, the plastic bottles we throw away. I'm using my reusable one. But just to say thank you so much. And Leah, I would like to invite you for your one thing. And then Olumide, if you're online, the last word goes to you. If not, we'll just thank you.
Mine's probably less than a minute, but I would say find people that are doing great work that you would love to work with and engage with them, become partners with them, and sustain those partnerships. I think the partnerships are the key to bringing the right people together to actually drive a simple solution or complex and everything in between. So partnerships and invest in them and sustain them.
Thank you. That's why it's goal 17, public and private partnerships. That's why we are here. We look forward to working with you and, like working with Aero Nero, which is interestingly started by a woman when she realized that there was a water shortage and how we can get water from air. So this is a developing industry everywhere. Again, thank you to our organizers, to Glocha, to Rotary. I'm a fellow Rotarian. And Miro, thank you so much. So may I request, I don't think, Olumide, are you online? If not, it's okay. Okay. Or maybe have everybody come here for a picture. And Sean, a big shout out to our photographer. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you.